Madam Crabnasty and the Whisperfish. Chapter 1. The Secret Door. "Be quiet, Toby," Jake hissed as his younger brother twisted the metal ruler deeper into the gap between the floorboards and the secret door. "I didn't say anything," Toby replied breathlessly. It was all very well for Jake to tell him to keep quiet, he thought. But it wasn't Jake who had just run all the way upstairs through all 5 floors, which were stacked like an upside-down wedding cake supported by sturdy pylons, to fetch the ruler, and then all the way back down again. "What if Dad catches us?" Toby asked in a small, worried voice. "He won't, as long as you keep a good lookout," Jake whispered, grabbing the ruler off his younger brother as he shoved Toby towards the front door. Toby dragged his feet, reluctant to leave Jake to all the interesting stuff, and peered through the frosted half window. "Is he still out there, with the small telescope?" Jake asked. "No," replied Toby. "He's with Mom in the front garden." "But what are they doing?" Jake asked. Silas and Nancy Troutbeck were sitting outside on 2 deck chairs under a large umbrella, enjoying the sunshine. Silas held a long stick, which looked a little bit like a fishing rod with 4 large brass weights hung from the frame at the end. It was his latest invention. By twisting a big handle, the fishing line unwound, causing the weights to twirl in a circle. Toby wanted to run out and ask what his father was doing with it. Silas's gadgets were always great fun to play with, but he did not dare leave his post, in case he and his brother were discovered. "Well?" Jake repeated in an irritated tone. "What are they doing?" "Well, Dad's trying out that thing he was working on last night," Toby replied. "And Mom's just sitting there with a newspaper over her head." "I hope this invention's as good as the chairlift," Jake remarked. "That was really fun, and it kept Dad busy for days." He paused as the ruler struck something solid and whistled pensively under his breath. "Is Emily around?" "Haven't seen her all day," replied Toby. "Well, we don't have to worry about her then," Jake sneered. "She's probably off sulking somewhere." He returned to his task with renewed determination. "Just tell me if Mom or Dad come back towards the house." Emily was off sulking somewhere. She had hidden in the kitchen under the big wooden work table for almost the entire afternoon. If she stayed there long enough, someone was bound to come looking for her. "I hate boys," she muttered under her breath. "They can do anything they want. All I get to do is make stupid seaweed lace. Well, I'll show them. I'll stay hidden until they get really worried and they won't know where to find me." She crept out from under the table and climbed into a small cupboard which occupied the space beneath the large bay window seat. It was usually used to store food, except recently it had developed a very bad case of damp. That side of the house faced the sea and had been built with 2 walls separated by a wide cavity to keep the damp sea wind out. The window seat itself was built into the cavity, and when Emily stepped into it, the wooden boards lining the bottom of the cupboard creaked under her weight. The long summer had dried it out somewhat, but had also warped and made it split. Emily didn't notice just how rotten the wood was, however her mind was on other things. And the kitchen smells, baking bread, earthy vegetables, and sweet herbs made her feel very safe and slightly drowsy. After a little while, Emily heard a scratching sound coming from beneath her. "Rats," she thought, "or worse." Emily hated the thought of rats being close to her in the dark. She had seen rats the size of her head all along the cliff tops many times. "Ooh," she muttered, reaching cautiously around herself and prodding the darkness to ward off what she thought might be there, and trying desperately to think brave thoughts. The sounds got louder and louder. Emily gritted her teeth, determined not to let a few noises scare her off, but the noises continued to echo around her, as if purposely trying to frighten her away. Just as she decided that the window seat was not such a very good place to hide after all, and had started to climb back out, the platform above her head, which formed the lid, came slamming down hard, blocking her escape. "Knickers," she said to herself, trying to pull the platform back up, but it was stuck fast. Emily pushed and pushed with all her strength, but the lid would not budge. "Help!" she screamed, flaying her arms about in an absolute panic. The boards creaked and groaned. A splintering sound drowned out the scratching, and the bottom fell out of the cupboard, pitching Emily into the cavity between the walls. Down and down she tumbled, rolling and bouncing every now and then as the cavity followed the contours of the outside walls. Her screams echoed like ghostly voices around her, and suddenly she landed with a hard bump. "Ouch!" she cried. The scratching sound had returned now, seeming to come from somewhere above her, but it was so dark Emily could not see anything. "Help me! Please, somebody help!" she screamed. "Who's that?" a voice asked, startling Emily badly. "It's me. Who's that?" Her own voice was a frightened whisper. "I asked first," the other voice insisted. Emily glared into the darkness. Despite the way the voice was muffled and distorted, she thought she recognized it. "Is that you, Jake?" "Yes, Emily." Jake began to laugh. "How on earth did you get down there?" Emily bit her bottom lip. She did not want to tell either of her brothers what had happened. They would tease her about it for weeks. I was exploring," she said, trying to sound very casual. "But how did you get down there?" Jake asked again. "Well, I just found a quick way down, you know, through the walls," Emily replied. She knew Jake would be extremely impressed by that. "Blimey," he replied. "Can you climb back up?" "If I could climb back up, I wouldn't have had to jump down in the first place, would I, balloon brain?" she snapped. Jake laughed again. "Do you know where you are?" he asked. "At the bottom of the house." Emily was getting really rather annoyed with her brother. He was completely senseless. "You're under the secret door," he explained, as if to a small child. "What's down there?" Emily looked around, letting her eyes adjust to the darkness. Well, nothing really," she told him. She was sitting on a sand-covered floor in some sort of cave. Above her head, the vague shape of the secret door seemed to grow out of the black rocks. The door itself had a bar across it, with teeth cut into one side, and this led away to a large cog, which in turn joined to another cog. She traced its shape with her fingers around the small cave, trying to make out how it worked. The handle, which turned the cogs and therefore released the bar, letting the door open, must be hidden under the stairs, she decided, about where the banister was. "Can you see a handle or anything?" Jake asked. Emily grinned to herself. She was not going to tell Jake about her discovery. That information would be kept to herself. "There's nothing on this side at all," she replied. "Then you'll just have to scramble your way back up the way you came," Jake said, chuckling to himself. The walls of the house were quite uneven, and Emily, who was used to climbing about on the rocks below the cliffs, found it fairly easy to get her hands and footholds. Every now and again, she would stop to catch her breath, but soon she was back under the window seat, and by using her shoe as a wedge, she managed to prise the lid up just enough to climb through the gap. She poured herself a drink of water before sitting down. All that falling and climbing was thirsty work, and then, having quenched her thirst, she hurried to her room to change her stockings, which were torn quite beyond repair. Finally, looking a little bit less like a girl who has recently fallen 20 feet through the walls of a house, Emily ran downstairs to find her brothers. She was looking forward to their questions. It wasn't often she got the chance to know things that they didn't, so they were bound to be nice to her, at least for a little while. Why don't we try jumping down the wall cavity? Toby wanted to know. His brother looked shocked at the thought. But that's not the point, Toby, he said. For one thing, I'd never fit down that hole, and for another, it just isn't the way I want to do it. I want to know how the door opens. Toby grinned. If we get down into the room, we're certain to find out how it opens. You're just scared in case you get hurt. I am not, snarled Jake. It's just Emily is smaller than you are and I'm bigger than both of you, so how would I ever be able to get down that way? Emily drew back from the first landing where she had stopped to eavesdrop on her brothers and wondered whether she should tell them just how big the gap actually was. But she didn't really want her brothers to find out how the door opened, so she kept quiet and laughed to herself at how timid Jake seemed. Sometimes spying on the two of them could be quite good fun, especially when they were doing things they weren't supposed to be doing, and making a pig's ear of it as well. Anyway, Jake said finally, it's almost tea time, so we'll have to, leave it till tomorrow, I suppose. Toby looked at Jake doubtfully. It's only 4:30, and you said we'd get through easily this time. Look, it's not as simple as it seems, you know, Jake snapped. They eyed each other suspiciously for a moment. And then Toby said, you shouldn't make promises you can't keep. Emily shoved her hand over her mouth as she was seized by a fit of giggles and mentally pictured Jake counting to 10 under his breath the way he always did in situations like these. All right then, smarty pants, he snarled. If it's that easy, then you can try it tomorrow. I will, replied Toby. But I bet it's just a stupid hole in the ground. Emily said there was really nothing there anyway. Emily didn't really want to listen to her brother's bickering anymore. She'd heard it often enough. So she clunked her feet on the stairs loudly and came down the last flight, ignoring the startled expressions on their faces as she slipped past them and went outside to enjoy what was left of the afternoon sun with her mother and father in the front garden. Jake shook his head slowly. Checking to make sure that Emily was out of earshot, he said, you really are stupid, you know. Emily wouldn't tell us anything, even if there was a whole hoard of treasure down there. Toby snorted and went outside, leaving Jake to clear away all the tools that they'd been trying to use. She knows something, thought Jake. I'll have to watch her carefully and find out what it is.